Welcome to our future Kauri forest. I've been looking for a property around Dunedin for the last few years, and I was looking for three criteria really. One, that it was close to the coast but not on the beach because of sea erosion. The second, that it had two ways off in the event of a fire. And the third criteria that I was looking for was that it was a rolling country, not boring and flat. And this property fulfilled those three criteria, except it was 30 times larger than I needed for a house. But it was such a beautiful property that I bought it anyway, and then I had to decide what I was going to do with it. It was running sheep at the time, and I'm not a sheep farmer, and I didn't want to have the high maintenance of sheep, and so trees became the next logical opportunity for the property. But there's a lot of pine trees in New Zealand already, and I didn't want to grow more pine, and they do require maintenance. You have to prune them as they grow. So I was looking around at what sort of New Zealand indigenous trees I could grow, and Kauri trees as the iconic New Zealand trees sort of became the obvious choice. As it transpires, I live in a historic building in Melbourne that was built in 1893. It was a former Victorian Railways administration building, and at the time that it was built, it was Australia's largest office building, and that got converted to apartments. And I lifted the lino on the floor before the construction. Underneath that was timber, and so I decided to get my floors polished rather than the standard carpet fit out. And it turned out that it was Kauri wood that was used for the flooring in my apartment building. So I've been walking on these floors for the last 25 years, and I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to replace the Kauri that was felled to make my building and many others. So I started doing some research into whether it's feasible this far south to grow Kauri, and one name that kept cropping up was Greg Stewart from Scion. He was the former New Zealand forestry Kauri expert, and his name kept coming up on scientific papers that I read and also lay publications. And so I gave him a call, and he was still working at Scion at the time in Rotorua, and we talked about it, and he said that it is possible as long as I do enough preparatory work to ensure that the Kauri can survive. He told me about a couple of stands that are down here. There's one in Taieri North at Waiparonga Springs, and there are Kauri as far south as Invercargill. So with the research that I've done and his guidance, then I started looking around for a nursery. Ribbonwood Nurseries in Dunedin satisfied my criteria, and I talked to Phil Dunn about this project, and he got on board with it. And when I went to visit him on one of my early trips over here, he gave me a card for Habitat Restorations, and I gave Glenn Riley a call, and it was about lunchtime. I called him, and he said, "Oh, I think I could be there about 4 o'clock this afternoon." And so he came out here and walked around, saw the bush, and we discussed the plans that I had. And so that's why you are here today to help plant out the nurse trees that will grow for a year or two before the Kauri go into the ground. And so this is going to be the South Island's southernmost Kauri forest, and possibly New Zealand's largest in terms of person-planted forest. And you're critical to the success of this project. All the people in Habitat Restorations, all the people who have been propagating the seeds and seedlings in Ribbonwood Nurseries as well. Those guys have been very supportive of me and this project. It will be a permanent forest. It's not for felling, and I hope that it'll be a legacy that future generations of New Zealanders can embrace with some pride. I certainly am doing it as a passion project and something for the environment and for the future, and to help with global warming. And I'll be well dead before these trees become significant, but it's a pleasing thought to be able to leave this kind of legacy for the future. So thank you very much for coming on site for these next few weeks. This is the first third that we're going to be planting. We've got 2 other thirds to go. We'll have about 19,000 nurse trees in the ground, and that'll be followed up with about 20,000 Kauri over the next few years, and hopefully with your efforts and favourable weather, things will grow, and we'll leave something for not only my children and their children, but hopefully that it's something that you can look back on with some pride and be able to tell your future generations that you had a hand in doing what we're doing today and for the next few years. So thank you very much.